Hello Dealmakers! So in this video I'm going to talk about investing during the market collapse. So if you haven't heard, the Philippine Stock Exchange has already collapsed. Now some of you already know that, some of you are feeling the pain of that, losing more than half of your fund value. It's very painful, right? And this video is really more of a reaction to the recent recent market advisory done by COL Financial. So last Saturday, March 21st, COL Financial did an Investing in Today's Market Volatility, which is a special webinar series, and it was conducted by their chief equity strategist, April Lynn Tan. So I'm going to give my thoughts on that in this video. Right, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Ronald Kagape. I'm a financial educator for IMG. I'm also the author of the book No Money Down in Real Estate, How to Buy and Sell Properties with Little or No Cash of Your Own. And I'm also a contributor for Money Troubleshooters, your answers to your questions, to your clueless and irreverent, money questions. All right. So going back, let's go back to COL's market advisory, investing in today's market volatility. So April again does a great job. I highly recommend that you watch the entire video. It's about 1 hour. However, there are some points that where April uses some technical jargon. So if you are not very familiar with stock market investing, or if you haven't invested in the stock market yet, you may get confused by some of the terms that she uses. So my goal in this video is to kind of walk you through some of these terms, give some of my opinions, some of my thoughts, whether I agree or disagree with some of her assessments, so that maybe for you it's going to be a little bit more valuable in terms of how do you invest in today's market volatility. All right. So but actually, my first reaction is the title of the video. It's too generic for me. It's too generic. I would have preferred that they said investing during the COVID-19 market collapse, because this is really what the content of the webinar is all about. April discusses the correlation between the pandemic and the reaction of the market, and actually, April shows us a timeline. She starts off by showing us a timeline, but the main message in the webinar is it will actually get worse before it gets better. All right, so you really need to hold on, to the seat of your pants. Kailangan kumapit, because this is going to be a rocky ride. And April shows us the timeline, of what happened. Um, in this chart, she shows that China actually reported the virus in December 31st. And a lot of things happened. China started to lock down cities. The World Health Organization declared COVID-19 a global emergency by January 30. 1 month after China alerted the World Health Organization. All right, and uh, the U.S. market started to fall February 24th, right? February 24th. But the Philippine Stock Exchange, we were still at the uh, 7,000 level. We dipped a bit, but we were still at the 7,000 level. We didn't really fall sharply. We started to fall sharply starting March 11th, when the World Health Organization declared COVID-19 a global pandemic, right? And just last Saturday, last week was very chaotic, for the Philippines, or well, not really chaotic, but very significant for the market, because this was the time when the government started to implement community quarantine, and then moved on to enhanced community quarantine. And last Friday, the market ended at around 4,600. Right, at the time of the recording of this video, which is today, the market is around 4,800. It has already started to recover slightly, but I don't expect it to still go all the way up. We can still expect a rocky journey ahead, right? And um, April actually explains Why that is so? Because it's going to get worse before it gets better. Now, she showed us, this chart. Daily cases, all over the world have yet to peak. It's still growing, right? It's still growing at an exponential level. So, but that excludes, mainland China. So all over the world, Italy, Europe, Europe has been hardest hit. The U.S. is just starting, to get hit as well. Us, we're also experiencing, more new cases uh, every day. So it will get worse, before it gets better. And the impact of the pandemic is actually very severe. All right, it before initially around February, the consensus and the analysts said that it will have minimal impact in China's economy. Right, so if you can see on the chart on the right, there is a column there, consensus, that those are the consensus estimates of the analysts, but the actual impact has been 10 times more, 5 or 10 times more than what was projected. So the impact to the economy is severe. We have lower consumer spending and lower investment spending. People are not investing; they're actually drawing their money out. We already felt the impact, with the travel bans, business closures. A lot of restaurants are closed. A lot of malls are closed. So a lot of businesses are closed right now. And the longer this goes, we can expect that jobs will be lost. Some businesses, especially those who are not in good financial shape, will probably close permanently, right? I've already seen some restaurant owners closing some of their branches, especially those that are, dependent on travel, right? There are no customers, dependent on tourists, right? There are no tourists coming in, there are no customers. How can you sustain, your restaurant? So when businesses close, jobs will be lost, and we've seen, supply chain disruptions because of the quarantine, right? So it is, the impact, has been severe, and it's going to get worse before it gets better. And April also observes that all financial instruments, are falling in value. No, those that are traditionally safe havens during a crisis are also, falling down, in value. Gold has fell down. Uh, this is an instrument that investors normally go back to. All right, and bond spreads are also, going down from 18.33, in January. It's went down to uh, less than 4. It went up to 9, but we can actually see that bond spreads are have gone down historically. And April actually discusses this a bit better than I do. So I actually recommend that you watch the entire video, how April talks about this. But the observation here is, traditionally, right? Traditionally, people go to gold, or people go to bonds, but that is not happening right now. All right. So all financial instruments are falling in value, and even real estate. We can actually expect that property values can go down. In the Philippines, we don't have real-time tracking. Unlike the stock market, which has real-time tracking of investment values, we don't have that. But I've already heard of landlords saying that their tenants couldn't pay them, which is to be expected. If tenants can't pay you, then you're going to hurt as well. And the longer tenants can't pay, the longer it's going to be more difficult for you. Now, there are also landlords who are now experiencing vacancy, right? For short-term tenants, obviously there are no tourists coming in, so there are no short-term tenants, coming in. And a lot of condominiums have already banned, the move-in of new tenants, right? So if your property is vacant, then you cannot expect the vacancy to be filled right away, as long as the quarantine is still in effect, still in place. If you're, I've also heard of long-term of landlords who have long-term tenants where their tenants went to the provinces before the quarantine, right? They were afraid of staying here, so they went back to their homes. So now their units are also vacant, right? So even real estate, which is a traditional safe haven, now is also experiencing the crunch. So there is no safe investment right now. Okay, so um, April goes on to discuss this situation, in a much better way than I did. So if you are interested, in knowing more about that, April also explains technically what is happening. So it can be quite confusing, right? Like I mentioned earlier, if you're just a new investor, that part can probably, blow your minds. But the short explanation there is that right now all assets are falling, so there is no safe haven right now. Okay. Now, but there is a good news. So it's not all bad news. Now, even if you tune in to the local news, right, it can be depressing, diba? It can be depressing because there's new cases. There's always new cases, and it seems to be like it's going up. Or there are news of patients dying, even doctors are dying, right? So it seems like these are all bad news, but there's actually a silver lining, behind all of this. Now, in terms of the number of cases increasing, that is expected because of the increased availability of testing kits, right? Because now that we're able to test more people, we're able to positively identify more new cases, right? So don't be too alarmed if you hear that there are new cases. What we're looking for is actually something that April calls the Golden Cross, and we're going to explain that, in a little while. But let's start off with the good news. Good news is China and South Korea have already started their own paths to recovery. China has already declared that they are COVID-free, right? Or at least they have already solved the epidemic. They've already closed down their hospitals, and they're now helping a lot of the countries, countries near to them in Asia, right? Start that includes us. So we just received, an aid package, from China. All right. Now, April also mentions that the recovery or this outbreak really is temporary. Right? This is not a permanent situation. Like I said, China, South Korea, they've already seen the worst, and the governments are already taking the right steps to address the problem. Right. So even if cases are exploding, or at least the cases are rising, in Italy and Europe, all around them, the governments are taking the right steps to address the problem, starting with the quarantines, right, the lockdowns. So that is very important in containing, the pandemic, right? So April shows us a graph of the daily new cases, right? So in China, there's already, I guess, there's almost no new cases already in China. So she also shows us a chart of newly infected versus newly recovered in China. So now, if before there were a lot of new cases coming up, but not a lot of recoveries, now the situation has reversed. There are now more recoveries versus more new cases, right? And April calls this the golden cross, right? When the chart for newly infected falls down and then the newly recovered goes up, there is an intersection there. That intersection, which happened on February 18th, is the golden cross for China. So that is what we're looking for in the Philippines. We're also looking for that day. Okay. Now the active cases in China have gone down, but very important also to mention here that Apple already opened all their 42 stores in China. So I think that is the best indicator that the worst is over. See, because the China controls their media, right? Controls their news. So you can be doubtful about what China claims, but because Apple is a third party, No, it's a third-party organization. It's a business. It assesses. No, it also assesses their situation on the ground if it's already safe already. So this is already a good sign that Apple has opened all 42 stores, in China. All right. In South Korea, the same thing. The worst is over. They have already seen their Golden Cross as well, last March 13th. So, well, we can safely say that these two countries have already started their recovery. And that is also the path that we're looking for. Right? We're looking for a path of or a pattern where daily new cases will start to go down. Right? So that is the what we're looking for in the Philippines. So in South Korea, their new cases peaked in March 3rd, and their Golden Cross Day was March 13th. Right? So that's what we're looking for, our own Golden Cross Day. All right. Okay, so China and South Korea have started recovery. Governments are taking, the right steps. Right? So April tells us what were the steps that she has observed. Lockdown, quarantine measures. These are being adopted globally. Right? Closing schools, prohibiting mass gatherings, even closing borders. So all of these are now being adopted globally, and everyone is working on increasing availability of testing kits and searching for a vaccine. Right, so these are the right steps, and even financially, central banks are aggressively boosting liquidity. Apparently, during a crisis, the central banks don't does not adopt this posture, and April explains this in a bit of a technical manner, but I think April does this better than I do. So I encourage you to watch the video. Right, I encourage you to watch. Head over to CLL Financial and listen to the explanation. But there's a lot of fiscal stimulus, a lot of money going into a lot of liquidity going into the market, care of our central banks. So our central banks recognizes right the danger, the problem, and they're taking the right steps to address that. So that is also another good news. And the last good news, the Philippine Stock Exchange is at its lowest price to earnings ratio in the last 10 years. What is this price to earnings ratio? Now, for those of you who don't know what P&E is, this is actually a quick measure of how valuable a company is, or how valuable or how overvalued a stock market is. If it's too high, if the ratio is too high compared to other countries, then you could say that the stock market is overvalued. Prices are too high. It's not a good time to invest. Now, if the P&E is low, all right, then you could say that there may be undervalued. The market may be undervalued. So it can either be it's that's the right value, or it's undervalued. And April actually explains that in the Philippines it is severely it is severely undervalued right now. The pricing is at its worst during the last 10 years. Yeah. So if you can see now in April's chart, the Philippines has not seen this P&E values for the last 10 years. Right? We've been hovering between 15 to 19, but now we are at 9.27. So a lot of stocks, especially blue chip stocks, valuable companies like banks. Right? Banks are not in they're not in any problem right now. Food companies, they're not experiencing any problems right now. Even utility companies are not experiencing problems right now, but their prices have gone down. Right, so there's a lot of discounts to be expected, in the market right now. Yeah, but I think I skipped one of April's slides. Right, April also, projects what is the possible Philippine scenario based on the timeline of China and South Korea. So if we were to follow the timeline of China and South Korea, we could expect that the Golden Cross Day for the Philippines will be on April 10th, right? So it's still a bit away, right? It's still about 2-3 weeks away. So that's why she says that it's going to get worse before it gets better, right? So really kapit lang Pilipinas, right? Because this is going to be a rough ride, for us, all right? And we can even probably expect our Golden Cross Day, to be a bit farther because we don't have the resources of China and South Korea, right? So we're actually struggling with the resources. Um, President Duterte has already asked for emergency powers, and the Senate has already granted it. So hopefully, our government will have a better handle on how to address this situation before it gets out of hand. All right. I guess the worst case scenario according to April is around July, right? Recovery would be around July, but in this case, our earliest recovery projection is around the first week of May. All right, so by May, hopefully, we will have already opened all businesses back. All right, so you know um, it's going to be dark, guys, but really just kapit lang, right? Medyo tipid-tipid lang muna tayo, right? Don't try to stay at home. Don't try to spend more. Stick to the stick to the essentials. Let forgo the non-essentials for now. All right. All right. But it's not as bad as the global financial crisis. Okay. So what April points out is that during the global financial crisis in 2008, the Philippine Stock Exchange bottomed at 49%, right? Oh, sorry, 56%, 56%. But now the PSEI is 49%, from the peak. So it's not as bad as the global financial crisis. That also implies an EPS drop of 38%. So what EPS means is earnings per share. Now for every share, earnings per share really is a measure of how much you make for every share share of stock that you have. All right, so this is a very technical discussion. April goes into a very technical discussion here, but in terms of the math, if we were to look at the implied drop, right? EPS should have dropped by 38%, but that's not the case. It only fell by 27%, right? So a lot of companies did not experience really this amount of earnings drop. Okay, so that's why this is the worst pricing. That's why COL Financial feels, and I agree. I agree that a lot of stocks are undervalued right now. During the global financial crisis, the lowest P/E that stocks achieved was 11x, right? Uh, that means that you were paying 11 times more. You were paying 11 times for every peso that the company earns, right? So right now, all stocks are trading below 10-year historical average P/Es, and it's everything is cheap right now in the Philippine stock market. Can we expect the same in the real estate market, right? So frankly, we don't have the data, we don't have the charts, to do that. But we can expect that some real estate properties would probably fall down, like we mentioned earlier. There are people that will lose their jobs. There are businesses that will close. So people who have mortgages on these properties, even though there is a grace period, an extension of their grace periods for payments, then we probably cannot expect that all business will recover as quickly. This is going to be a long recovery for some businesses, because for example, for tourism will not just suddenly recover overnight, because there will be people that cannot afford, right, to go and travel right away. So there's going to be a long process. It's not going to be instant recovery, right? So for property owners, there are probably going to be people that will have to sell at a loss, right? So I don't think that property values will fall down, right? Will fall down by 50%. So in terms of percentages, we could probably expect somewhere between 10 to 20% because Philippine real estate is still valuable. All right. Now, what we need to watch out for is, will, say for example, will the POGOs be affected? Will the BPOs be affected? Right? Will expansion of these, industries be affected? Because we've already seen that a lot of Chinese have gone back to China, right? They flew back to China um, even before the travel bans. So we don't know if they're going to come back. So hopefully, of course, hopefully they do. But if they don't, then a lot of property owners will feel that burden, and they may be forced to sell as well. All right. Okay. So what does April, encourage us? Stay invested. All right. Stay invested. That is the strategy that you'd want to adopt right now. Don't sell, especially if you're in the stock market. Don't sell. If you're a property owner, no, don't sell right away. Try to use up your emergency funds. Hustle for cash right now. Look for opportunities, to make extra money, even while you're quarantined. So think of these options, but stay invested. Don't sell right away. Okay, and uh, think long term. Okay, think long term. We're going to recover. This is just a temporary occurrence. This is not permanent. The virus will not stay with us permanently. So it's going. A vaccine will eventually be discovered, and we will develop herd immunity. Right? Herd immunity is what we is a medical term where more people will become immune to the virus, and we'll be able to combat it without need for vaccines even. All right, so think long term. This is temporary. Any investments that you make right now, will bear fruit in the future. All right. But I would also encourage that you diversify. Don't put all of your eggs in one basket, because even if we say that the stock market will recover, the real estate market will recover, no, we don't know when that will happen. So you may find that you will need to diversify, maybe get into a new business, right? Get into something, invest in something that can make money for you in the short term. And I'm going to do a separate video about that. What are the options that you can explore to make money now while you're quarantined, and even after the quarantine. All right, so diversify your investment classes, diversify your businesses, your income sources. And this actually highlights the danger of having only one source of income. Now, we've already seen that the people who only rely on their daily wages, they're the ones that are hardest hit. And even if you guys, for you that are working, if you only have one source of income, only your salary, then you are hurting, right? You are the one that has a high level of anxiety right now. So that's why it's important that you diversify not just your investments, but your income sources as well. And you'd want to buy, but you limit the size. So don't invest everything there. Like we said, diversify, right? Limit the sizes, because we don't know when the recovery will come. So especially for a beginner, I just suggest that you practice peso cost averaging right now. If you don't know what that is, I'm going to explain that as well, in a future video. But there's a lot of videos out there that explains peso cost averaging. All right. And then finally, during the quarantine, invest in your financial education. So I actually commend you if you have reached to the end of this video, you are investing in your financial education. But do a little bit more. If you don't have emergency funds, start learning about emergency funds. If you have not invested in the stock market, start to learn how to invest in the financial market. And it's at this point where I invite you guys, to attend our free webinars. Free webinars in IMG. There's a lot of financial educators out there are conducting the secret to saving and building your future webinars for IMG, because now our founders have already foreseen these problems. We will encounter financial problems, and really you need to be prepared for them. And how do you do that? We explain that in our webinars. So if you're interested, comment below. Let me know if you'd want to attend an IMG financial webinar, or if you want to attend my own webinar for IMG. Okay, so continue to invest, read books. If you don't know how to invest in real estate, I suggest you consider my book, No Money Down Formula in Real Estate. We don't have the printed copies already, and in fact it's not suggested that you buy printed copies right now. We want to limit the spread of virus. Get the COVID-free version, the digital version. Okay, the digital version is available in nomoneydownformula.com. So it's only 495 pesos. Right, and you also want to consider Money Troubleshooters. So Money Troubleshooters answers a lot of your money questions on budgeting, saving, even questions on entrepreneurship, real estate, investing in stocks, investing in cryptocurrency. So there's a lot of questions answered in this book. All right, Money Troubleshooters. Right, so that's it. I hope you like this video. I hope you learned something. I also encourage you to go ahead to COL Financial's website and watch their market advisory. I hope you, if you haven't, subscribe to this channel if you want to learn more about investing, about making deals, and how to become more financially literate. All right, so this has been Ronald Cagape, your financial educator, encouraging you to make deals and grow rich during these hard times. This is when wealth is made during a crisis. Okay, while everyone is fearful, be greedy. Okay, that's what Warren Buffett said. So make deals and grow rich, and I hope all of your deals will push through.